Okay, because if you got a 5 and 5 option and that's 84,000, and you got a 1 option, we would logically think you just add 19,000 more, and that's the number.
No.
Which is what the math I would like to get, because that's a lot less than 175. So 1% of the entire county salary is $175,000.
With taxes, group life.
1%.
The 1% is the addition above the 5%.
Right.
We're going 5%. If you went up, if you did the 5 and 5, you're decreasing the cost of the county's VRS by 5.
Okay, we're not going to do that.
But if going 5 and 6, the county is having to pay their portion of VRS on that 6%, not just on 5%. So you've got the increase on the 1% is on your FICA, your retirement, and your group life.
Right. I'm not letting this dog go. I don't understand how, when we add 1 more percent, if we do 5 and 5, right?
5 and 5.
How much additional funding do we have to get?
84,000, 85,000 for 5 and 5.
Okay. So now if I decide to do 5 and 6, why does my number double? If my percentage only goes up 20%, why does my number double?
Because you're paying increased costs on the county side for VRS on that additional 1%.
How much if we,
Mathematically, that's impossible.
how much would just the salary increase itself? The 1%, what does that mean based on the average payroll for the county? How much increase would that mean? $50,000, $75,000?
That's what I said before. 1% of all our
What
salary
would
is
that equate
175.
to?
That's our question.
Mr. Cully.
What I wanted to add to that was additional money in the budget. Remember, the whole VRS rate was in the budget. So the 5% is just the extra FICA and taxes and things that we have to do if you raise people's salary. The 1% is not in the budget, so it's the cost of the raising of the salary plus insurance plus the taxes, not just FICA, but payroll taxes on the increased salaries. And that's part of what's in the $84,000 for the 5 and 5. We have the whole 5% rate in the original budget, but when you change people's salary 5%, then your payroll taxes go up that the county has to put in, along with the employee having to put in FICA and all those other taxes. So that makes that part of the number go up.
So back to my, well, that's why it's not working. Back to my original question then, 1% of the entire county payroll is $175,000?
That's a frank. I don't know what total payroll is.
No, it cannot be based on what you're telling us.
Well, then how can 1% be $175,000?
Well, it's not, 1% is not 175,000. I don't know what that number is, whether it's 50,000. I see a number in here, or I saw a number a few minutes ago that said the additional cost of the county to provide a 1.5% pay increase instead of a 1% would be $50,000.
Right.
So I'm assuming the additional half a percent meant $50,000 based on the current payroll.
Yeah.
Roughly.
All right, so you're talking about $100,000 for a 1% raise. So we have to assume that's what she's trying to say here, or that's what she's saying here, is that $100,000 of the 175 is strictly for the salary increase itself. Then you talk about the FICA taxes, then you talk about...
So you're saying there, just to make sure I understand,
Sure.
I appreciate you working with me, 1% of the entire county salary is $50,000?
No.
That 1% includes the increased FICA, the increased VRS, and the group life, not just salary.
Okay, and I'm really sorry, but I like to look at numbers and make sure I understand the numbers and not have somebody explain numbers to me. That's why I like numbers, because they're always the same. All right, I need to break on this, because I need to see these numbers in reality.
Do you have anything with you, Mrs. Hatcher, that you could pull out as to what the actual payroll is for the county. I don't know whether for the county on a yearly basis and what 1% would mean.
I don't have it with me. I would have to send it to you. I'm sorry.
Right, it's just, this is just not.
Well, see, that's the problem. Can we work on this during the break?
Sure, absolutely. And in fact, I think we've been told that it has to be approved by the 12th of June.
Yes.
Right. So we have another meeting to go over this particular item, so we'll just table this. Mr. Cully?
I mean, I'm for it. I want you to understand, I'm for it. I just need to know how much it costs and how we got to that cost.
We will get that for you.
Okay.
We have a resolution, if you're comfortable with Part A of this, which is not to change and buy down the rate, or do you want to take care of that part of it? Maybe we can feel like we've made some progress and have this resolution.
You want to tell them what the answer is going to be?
I'm new.
I know. That's why I asked him to tell you.
I'm going to keep trying.
Let's go ahead and table the whole item. Is there a motion to table this particular item discussion of the VRS? She doesn't have it.
Let me check one thing, and
Okay, well, let's wait a minute before we table it, because she's going to check one thing.
If 50,000 is half a percent.
But you. Increased cost of building.
Right.
We still, but they don't. Our portion. But I understand his question, because he's trying to do it.
I don't have it with me. I'll have to send it to you.
Let's just table,
Mr.
let's
Chairman,
table this item, Mr. Underwood.
Mr. Chairman, I'd move that we table the VRS rate options until our next meeting.
All right, June 12th. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, Mr. Underwood, second by Mr. Seeler, that we will table item 10, discussion of VRS contribution rate options for localities, to the meeting on June 10th. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Thank you, Mrs. Hatchett. If you'll get that information by the 12th, we'd appreciate it.
I will.
Maybe you can
And,
get it to us prior to that so we can look at it.
and I also just want to let the board know, you all have to also certify the school board's rates at the same time.
Okay.
We want to do those too.
All right. Item, let's take a 20-minute break. We'll come back at 7:30. Recess. We'll reconvene the Board of Supervisors meeting to order. The next item on the agenda this evening is the public comment period. I'm going to ask Mrs. Hall if she would read the rules for public comments.
Public comment period shall be for the purpose of allowing the public to speak to the board on any matter which is not scheduled for public hearing at this meeting. To help conduct the meeting in an orderly and efficient manner, please refrain from clapping or other public demonstrations of support or opposition. The public comment period shall not serve as a forum for debate with the board or a question and answer period with the board. Remarks shall be addressed only to the board and not to staff, the audience, or the media. All public comments shall be made in a respectful manner. Cursing and antagonistic behavior are prohibited and shall be grounds for removal from the meeting. Comments should focus on matters or issues before the board or county and not individual board members or staff. Comments which single out an individual board member or staff may be ruled out of order by the chair. Each speaker shall clearly state his or her name and voting district if applicable. There shall be a time limit for each individual speaker of 3 minutes. No speaker shall address the board more than once during the public comment period at any single board meeting. The county administrator will time the speakers and notify them when their time has expired.
Thank you, Ms. Hall. Kelly, you ready? We will now declare the public comment period open. If you would come forward to the podium and follow the rules that was indicated by Mrs. Hall. Madam Chairman, it's good to see you.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Carson. I am from the Mattaponi District and chairperson of the Caroline County School Board. I have a few items I would like to mention at this time. As you would ask the board to give you a budget with level funding, we honored your request. We worked with you all hard. We gave you the budget that you asked with the level funding. I'm asking again that when you reconnect the Bowling Green School from the Bowling Green project, the renovation, that you waive the $46,000 reconnect fee for the water bill as we have paid our bills on time, and that we be allowed to use the $46,000 in the gym fund for Bowling Green Primary, for the Bowling Green School. I come before you to ask that you not cut the $200,000 in our school budget. Our budget is stretched as tight as it can go at this time. We have at this particular time roughly 715 employees in the county, and it fluctuates month to month. I'm asking the school board, as your county administrator asked, for the 5% VRS with the 1% salary increase for the VRS for our teachers. All new classifieds will not receive VRS, so they will get the full 6% increase. I would like at this time for any person who is here in support of the school budget just to please stand and not make any noise, just to let you see the people that are supporting the school budget at this time. Thank you for coming tonight, for your support. I appreciate it. And so do the children. I want you to consider the budget again, please, and think of all the people here tonight that are concerned about it and the future of our county with the schools. And when people come looking for new homes and businesses, that they can be proud of our schools since they're all fully accredited. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on any issue, with the exception of the public hearings that will be held this evening? Please come forward, state your name and your voting district.
My name is Renee Garrett. I am part of the Port Royal District, and I am a county employee. I work with the autism children at Bowling Green Primary. I come to you as a parent of 2 children in elementary school. I'd like to tell you that my husband started in Caroline County Public Schools over 35 years ago with a pencil, a paper, and a folder. That's all he needed to carry with him because the school had everything else he needed to get a good education. In 35 years, you would think that schools would be even better than they were back then. You would think that this great country that we live in would be giving and still giving to our children to provide them a great education which they so richly deserve. So what does it say when parents have to spend hundreds of dollars each year out of their own pockets to provide their children with a free public education that is supposed to be paid for with our tax money and revenue from the county, state, and government? The schools do not have enough textbooks, so my daughters have to have notebooks and pencils to write down what they learn rather than read it in a book. They need to bring in dry erase markers because the schools do not have enough money to provide the teachers with the basic supplies. They need to bring in hand soap, sanitizer, and Clorox wipes because the schools do not have enough money to provide adequate cleaning supplies. What kind of message is that sending to the parents? For me, the message I get is that Caroline County must not care that much about the future of our children and our country. And our county. New families moving into the area are going to look at our school system and compare it to surrounding counties and find out that there is no comparison and move somewhere else rather than Caroline County. Please do not take away any more from our children. Please do not take anything else away from our teachers and from our schools. Everyone in Caroline County deserves better. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on any issue that's not on a public hearing?
Hi, my name is Dee Beverly.
Hi, Ms. Beverly.
I'm from the Port Royal District. I have to tell you, when I left here after the last meeting, I was embarrassed and I was ashamed to be part of Caroline County. At the point where we had our teachers were being threatened to be arrested and kicked out of here. That was uncalled for. Not only was the statement made by one, but instead of saying this isn't right, no one took up for them. These teachers have to sit here. I'm not here as a person for the teachers. I'm a parent. I have a child in the middle school, 2 in the middle school, 1 in the high school, and a grandson in the primary school. What kind of lesson does that teach my children? I'm sitting here, these teachers out here, you made the comment that they were only worried about their pay. It was so much more than just pay. All you were worried about at the last meeting was they just want more pay, they just want more pay. It's not just about pay. It is about getting the adequate stuff they need to teach these students. There are things out there that can make their jobs easier, but they can't get provided for it because we don't have the funding for it. I work with computers every day. The laptops, they need, a lot of them need replacing, but they need new power plugs. Something as simple as that, there's no funding for. There's a lot of things the schools need and these teachers are asking for. And like Ms. Garrett just said, students come in, do not have pencils, do not have glue, do not have paper. The school does not have the money to fund it. Who do you think's funding that? It comes out of the teachers' pay because the teachers are providing it because they want to have their students to have what they need. Tissues in a classroom. Most of these teachers are going out and buying them to bring into their classroom. Something as simple as that, something you get in your offices, they don't get. They have to go out and provide for it. Why? Because there's not money for the simplest things in the budget. We're not asking for things that are frivolous. We're asking for basic needs. Things to help these teachers provide for the schools. The students should come first. Students should come first. When you're looking to move into the county, what are you looking at? If you're a parent, the first thing you look at is schools. If you're an up-and-coming couple and you have no children yet, you want to find the best schools for your children. We need to think about that. We're not worried about having a Y in the county. The comment was also made with the Y that guess what? That's not coming out of taxpayer money. Okay, but what happens when that money doesn't get funded? It's going to come from where?
The 3 minutes.
I understand.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on any issue?
Good evening, and thank you for your time. My name is Erin Martin. I live in Lake Landor. I simply want to say thank you for working with our school board. Please continue to do so. It's amicable, and I appreciate it. The point that I would like to make is that there are innovative and creative ways to become financially responsible and fiscally accountable. There are protocols that the school will take, but it will take some time to go through those. There are protocols available that are being addressed, but again, please give them time, but allow them this financial opportunity to do so as well. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mrs. Martin. Anyone else? Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on any issue not related to a public hearing? Is there anyone else who would like to address the board on any issue not related to a public hearing?
Well, good evening. I'm Nancy Filsoof, and I'm from Sparta Road, Bowling Green District. And I'll be very brief. We moved to Caroline County about a year ago, although we've owned property here for 10 years. And we came here because we were retiring, and we wanted to have a great life in the beautiful country with wonderful people. And we thought we were going to have a less expensive financial situation as far as living here. And we found out the first two is true, but the last one isn't really true. That's kind of a myth. Living in the country isn't cheaper. It's really more expensive. And the one thing that really grabbed our attention is when we got our property tax and it was amazing that my old car, my 10-year-old car, increased in value by $2,000 from last year. And I was like, what? So I went to, I guess it was the commissioner of finance or whatever. I'm sorry, I'm not good at this. And we, that day, asked, how did you arrive at this? We know it's NADA. We know it's 3.5% on, the dollar, but how did you arrive at the value? And evidently, there are three choices. There's the loan value, there's the trade-in value or the wholesale, and then there's the retail value. And I don't understand, but I guess you all decided that the retail value was the fair assessment of our property. And I don't know anyone, unless you own a car dealership, can get the retail value on your car. I would think it would be more the trade-in value. So I would like to see a little more common sense and fairness when you're making decisions about taxes, because the values you're putting on property is way beyond what we can actually gain from that. It's not fair. And just another little example is trailers. I just don't get the trailer. We paid $400 for it 10 years ago. It's now worth $800. I'm just so excited we're investing in great, property values. And just want to say it's kind of beyond logic. So please keep that in mind when you're making decisions about how much we should be taxed and what the value is. Thank you.
Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? One last call. Is there anyone else who would like to address the board? Hearing no further comments, the public comment period is declared closed. The board thanks you for your comments this evening. And I will say to the last speaker, I think the board as a whole realizes that there has to be something changed with the retail value. To be quite honest with you, it's my understanding that, and I didn't realize this all the years I've been on the board, and many other board members did not, that the board's set as to whether it would be retail, trade-in, or a loan value. And evidently it was established back in the 70s or something, the early 80s, and it never has changed, because at that time we were like 40% of the assessed value, or the NADA book value. And so no one paid attention to it. Now that we realize we're at 100%, there's no question. Unfortunately for this year, unfortunately there's nothing we can do to correct that. But I can assure you that I believe that at least the majority of this board is going to look at addressing that issue come next year to go to either a loan value or a trade-in value. And I do appreciate your comments, and we understand that there's an issue there. All right, next item on the agenda is public hearings. The first public hearing is proposed VDOT FY 2013 through 2018 Secondary System Construction Program.
Good evening again. Hopefully you all have a copy of the secondary 6-year plan in your packets. Alrighty, so my name, let's back up here. My name again is Marcy Parker with the Virginia Department of Transportation. The Code of Virginia requires that the County Board of Supervisors, in conjunction with the Department of Transportation, formulate a 6-year secondary improvement plan and a priority list for the secondary improvement budget. Tonight's public hearing is being conducted for the fiscal year 13 through 18 plan and the 2013 fiscal year budget. In updating the 6-year plan, we have followed the priorities as you established last year. Those priorities, for a reminder, your construction priorities were Route 639 Lady Smith Road from Route 1 to 0.35 miles east of Route 1. Your second priority was Route 631 Bull Church Road Bridge over South River. Of your unpaved priorities, you have Route 751 Coleman Town Road, Route 741 Faulkner Lane, Route 690 Old CC Road, and Route 760 Sorrel Lane. This year's budget follows the first year of the secondary 6-year plan, which is fiscal year 2013, which has an allocation of $91,727. The projects funded in fiscal year 13 are Route 751 Coleman Town Road, Route 690 Old CC Road, and Route 760 Sorrel Lane. Please keep in mind this plan is only for improvements and new construction. It does not include maintenance work such as patching potholes, pulling ditches, snow removal, or repaving roads. At this time, if the board does not have any questions, we'd like to solicit comments from the public concerning this secondary 6-year plan.
Does the board have any questions, Ms. Parker, before we open the public hearing?
Just one to make a statement. Ms. Parker, could you state for us the total amount of funding that VDOT has for our area based on this plan?
Over the 6 years, you have $596,512.
So average less than $100,000 a year for secondary roads.
Correct. It is approximately $100,000 each year.
Thank you.
Other questions of Ms. Parker before we open the public hearing? We will now declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to the secondary system construction program as outlined by Ms. Parker? Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to or in favor of the secondary system program, construction program as this outlined? One last call. Is anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to the secondary system construction program as outlined? Hearing no comment, the public hearing is declared closed. Board have questions, comments?
Comment, Mr. Chairman, while they get ready?
Mr. Thomas?
Just to go over, Ms. Parker, the unpaved roads we have on the list. We're doing direct. That was at 100. The next one is $347,000. So we realistically, with $600,000, can't do a lot on the secondary roads, right?
Correct. Of your roads, Ladysmith Road is fully funded, so that one is done. Bull Church Road, that has funding of PE and right-of-way. The construction funding is not there yet. However, we are moving forward with the design and the right-of-way. Your unpaved roads, Coleman Town Road is $20,000 shy of its full funding, and that is what we were budgeting this year. Faulkner Lane is fully funded, so we will work on paving that one very soon. Old CC Road, you are $62,000 shy, which will be funded this year. And Sorrel Lane is where the rest of your funding, which is only about $9,000 for this year, will go, and you're $393,000 shy on fully funding that project.
Okay. And is VDOT's policy to not begin a project until it's fully funded?
No. We will begin the design, and if any right-of-way is necessary, that's as it's going. As for the construction, we have to make sure we have 100% of the funds within the fiscal year that the project completes construction.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Seeley?
That's all. Go ahead. I guess I was just looking at the ranking and didn't understand 7. So we're doing 3, 4, and 5. There's 1 and 2 are gone. We've already completed 1 and 2.
On the unpaved road.
On the unpaved roads, I'm sorry.
No.
Oh, on the unpaved road list that the priority list that the county has?
Or have been constructed, I see it.
Which
Thank
two?
you.
On this one, yes.
So Sorrel Lane, so for the 6-year plan, we're basically out of money. That won't happen until after 2018?
Yes, 2017 is the current add date, based on the funding.
And will that include paving then, or no?
Yes, that's an unpaved road. Whether or not the county declares it a rural rustic road will make a huge difference in what the design is and how much it would cost. Declaring it a rural rustic road would make it cheaper to construct than if we have to build it to standard.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Parker. Does the number of residents living on a road have an impact on getting them on the list and deciding where they fall as far as the ranking is concerned?
There's no policy now by VDOT that says anything about how many people live on the road. There used to be a pot of money called unpaved road money. That pot of money does no longer exists based on the revenues we have. With that pot, you had to have more than 50 vehicles a day on the road, which would be approximately 5 houses or more. However, without having that pot of money, there is no restriction on the unpaved roads. They just have to be state-maintained roads.
Okay. In order to be a state-maintained road, there is some things that have to be done to bring those roads up to a particular specification.
Correct. There are 2 ways for a road to come into the system. It can come in through the rural addition process, which can be funded from the secondary 6-year plan. And under that process, there are certain rules. I believe the subdivision had to be platted prior to 1992, and some other, the plat has to not have a certain comment on it. Then if it's brought in that way, VDOT, through the secondary 6-year funding, will bring it up to standard ourselves. The other way is through the subdivision code, and that is other people have to bring the roads up to state standard, and then we add them to the system.
Okay. Thank you.
Other questions? Comments? Does the board wish, does the board member wish to make a motion to approve the? Nobody spoke. How does the board wish to handle this? Approve the 6-year secondary road construction program as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
All right. So
Mr.
second?
Chairman, I'll make that second. I guess it's based on our funding, which there isn't a lot of, so it is what it is.
Motion by Mr. Underwood, second by Mr. Thomas, that we approve the proposed 6-year secondary road construction program as presented. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. And the motion is carried. Thank you, Ms. Parker. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too. The next item under public hearings is TXT 03-2012, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Caroline County by amending Article 16, non-conforming lots, uses, and structures, Section 5, non-conforming signs, by adding paragraph G, replacement of non-conforming signs in Highway Corridor Overlay District. The purpose of this amendment is to allow a one-time replacement of non-conforming signage in the Highway Corridor Overlay District, subject to conditions. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this particular text amendment was prepared at the request of several board members and referred to the Planning Commission by the board. The Planning Commission considered this proposed text amendment and did forward it with a recommendation of approval unanimously to the board. The proposed amendment would allow existing businesses a one-time replacement of a non-conforming sign that has been rendered, for lack of a better term, unusable because of relocations of secondary roads or other road improvements in the county. It would have a very limited effect. It would not apply generally to freestanding signs in any other business or highway corridor district area. And with that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have.
Board members have any questions of Mr. Fincham? Mr. Thomas?
Mr. Fincham, I admit to being one of those board members who asked for this, and I thought in the ordinance we saw before there was something with regard to the road changing. Am I missing that now, or did we take that out?
4.
Oh, thank you. Okay, so that's must have been rendered obsolete by relocation of a state road.
Yes, sir.
And that makes each one very unique. Thank you. Okay.
Other questions of Mr. Fincham before we open the public hearing? Mr. Fincham, there not seem to be other questions at this point. Right. We will now declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this ordinance amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this ordinance amendment? Hearing no comments, the public hearing is declared closed. Board have questions or comments to Mr. Fincham? How does the board wish to dispose
Mr.
of this
Chairman,
item?
I'd like to make a motion that we approve text amendment 03-2012.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Black, that we approve this text amendment. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay, and the motion is carried. The next item is text TXT 04-2012, an ordinance to amend the zoning ordinance of Caroline County by amending Article 15, Supplemental Regulations, Section 15, Highway or Corridor Overlay District, Section 15.7B, Paragraph 1. The purpose of this amendment is to add language to allow outside storage in the side yard under certain conditions. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, this proposed text amendment was also referred to the Planning Commission and prepared at the request of several members of the board. The Planning Commission did have a public hearing on this amendment and has forwarded this with a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors. Again, this would affect very few businesses in the county. It would allow them to continue and perhaps in some cases expand existing operations that are currently restricted by the Highway Corridor Overlay standards. And with that, I'll address any questions that the board may have.
Any questions, Mr. Chairman? Any questions?
Go ahead.
Thank you. Ms. Fincham, again, one of those who asked you for it. And this is really like the previous one. This was an effort for us to help a business. In this case, too, this is another effort for us to help a business through some things. So that's all these are about. We're just making some changes to allow someone who was running a business, who all of a sudden, for whatever reason, couldn't, and now we're allowing them to continue. So that's
Yes, sir.
all this really is. Thank you, sir.
Other questions of Mr. Fincham? Mr. Fincham, I do have one.
Yes, sir.
When we talk about outside storage in the side yard versus the backyard of a facility, is there a restriction as to what can be put in that, stored in that side yard?
There isn't a restriction as to what can be stored there. They could be allowed to store the same materials that they're currently allowed to store in the rear yard. They're still subject to the buffering and screening requirements, and they can only, by amendment, they're only allowed to locate in the side yard if there's a physical or if there's a site condition that prohibits the storage in the rear yard.
All right, thank you. Okay. Board have any questions? Any other questions?
Yes, just one. All right. Is there any provision for fencing or anything of that nature that might hide it from view? Is that a part of?
Yes, sir. That's already required by ordinance.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. We will now declare the public hearing open. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to the zoning amendment? Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to this zoning ordinance? One last call. Is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of or in opposition to the zoning ordinance? Hearing no comments, the public hearing is declared closed. Board have questions? No comments. Mr. Thomas?
Oh, no questions? I was ready to make a motion. Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve text amendment TXT 04-2012.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Thomas, seconded by Mr. Underwood, that we approve text amendment 04-2012. Discussion on the motion. All in favor, vote by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Fincham.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham.
All right, we move on to the unfinished business of the agenda. Number 11, proposed fire and rescue volunteer stipend policy and funding. Who's going to handle that? You or Chief? Chief Loftus?
Good evening. This is very simply, if you recall a few meetings back, you took this off the agenda to receive input and feedback from any of the volunteer companies on this funding policy. And I have not received any feedback on the policy to date. So I would say the policy stands. I believe you have to allocate a certain amount of funding for this program within this budget year.
Board members have any questions of Chief Loftus? I think that he's recommending that we put, I believe it's $15,000 into a fund.
I believe so, yes, sir.
That would be evenly distributed among all of the active volunteers that would be eligible, or certainly that would...
Be eligible under that policy, that's correct.
Just kind of highlight that point. The board had a process before where we gave volunteers a credit on their personal property tax, and that was decided to be unfair by some based on the size of your vehicle. If it was new, you got more. If it was older, you got less. So this is a way to just make it fair.
That's correct. It also helps people that volunteer in Caroline that do not live in Caroline.
Okay. So it's just fair. We weren't trying to get rid of the fire and rescue program, just
it's a more equitable distribution. Yes.
Okay. And the free county sticker still applies under this policy as well?
Doesn't affect that.
Okay. All right. Have any questions? As the board wishes to dispose of that item, we can approve FIF funding, and we'll have to approve the additional funding of $15,000 to implement this program.
Is the 15 currently in the budget?
Mrs. Hatcher, is the $15,000 that's being proposed by the policy that the chief has just explained to us, is that $15,000 in the budget? In the original budget that you presented to the board, had you included the personal property tax? Because we didn't make that change until probably March or April, right?
The old one should have still been in the budget.
You should have had in the budget a dollar amount that would take care of the personal property.
It was figured into the personal property when we found out what to do assessment for it. I refigured the personal property. That's all been equated out. So it basically works itself out. Now I have to show it as a different type of line item.
I guess, okay, but my question is the net result. Thank you. In fact, it should be a little on the positive side because this stipend is not as expensive as the other stipend. Thank you. All right, so it's is there a motion to approve the $15,000 to public safety?
Mr. Chairman, I move that we put aside the $15,000 for the proposed fire and rescue volunteer stipend.
Is there a second?
I second.
Motion made by Mr. Underwood, seconded by Mr. Taylor, that we approve funding of $15,000 toward the fire and rescue volunteer stipend policy. Discussion of the motion. All in favor vote by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. And the motion is carried. All right. Item number 12, continued discussion of fiscal year 2012-2013 budget. Who's going to handle that further discussion? Ms. Hatcher, you or Mr. Cullett?
We were under the impression from the last meeting that the board was taking those proposed reductions and going to study them and come back to us. We don't have any additional recommendations at this time. Okay. That was our take.
There's one item on here that I think that I would like to see us pull off, and that's the funding for the Chamber of Commerce. I've had a discussion with the president of the Chamber, and it appears that if the county does pull that funding for the Chamber, that the Chamber would more than likely fold. And I think that would send a terrible message if we allowed the Chamber of Commerce to fold in the county, and I would like to see that $7,500 pulled from this list.
I'll agree with that.
My other question would be, and I don't know, someone has to share with me, the reduced contribution